All right, so now that we've got this basic navigation set up, in the book, just so you know, it jumps over to talking about Superfish. We'll come back to that if we have some time, but for right now, let's just move forward a little bit. So I want to talk about making this responsive. And so you'll notice that one of the things that happens at a breakpoint, let's take a look, I think it's around 600. If I do this, you'll notice that right around 600 is, I think, when it pops open. And there we go right there. Yeah, it's at 600, it's breakpoint. And we get this primary menu button. Let's take a look at how that's happening. If we jump into our header file, our header.php file, down around line 40, that is where we have this button. And inside of it is where it says PHP. And then basically what it's going to do is it's going to echo out the Topcat primary menu. And the name of that menu is what it's going to echo out. And so if we put anything else there, like we could just overwrite that and say menu, for instance. Let's just do that for a second. And let's save that and let's put that up there so you can see what happens. And then we'll come back over here and hit refresh. And you see right there it says menu. So you can see that you can put something different in there besides the words primary menu. What I want to show you how to do is go over here to Font Awesome, because we've already preloaded Font Awesome library if you were following this tutorial. And what we can do here is go to where it says icons. Let's go to icons. And then we're going to do a search for an icon. So I'm going to search for hamburger menu, and then all of a sudden you see as I start to type the word hamburger, I get this thing down here that says bars. That's what I want. I want to click on bars, and we can scroll down here and we can find the HTML that we're going to put into the spot where that's going to show up. So we're going to copy this, okay, and we are going to jump over to Dreamweaver and we're going to put it right here in the spot where it says menu, and we can either overwrite that or we can put it right before menu, and then I'll put a space there so that the word menu is still going to show up next to the little hamburger icon. Let's save. We'll put that up on the server. And let's come back over here really quickly and hit the refresh button. And now if we come over and let's make it smaller, you see that it pops up and then there's our hamburger menu. Okay, so if we click it, it drops down, and we'll make this responsive in just a minute, but here we go. It's showing up there. And then now here's the thing. You might look at that and go, God, it's so ugly. It looks like a button. Well, that's because it technically is a button. It's using JavaScript to open it. So if you were to come and right click this and inspect this item, you see that it jumps over here in the HTML view to button, and the class is menu toggle. And I want to show you a couple of things. So you might look at this and you immediately see that it's got a max width of 600, media query, and all it says is display block. Well, if you were to scroll down, the place where it's getting all of its button styling is on the button selector type, and it's got all of this, border radius. So if you were to turn all of these things off, right, for the button, you could start to see some things happening, where it changes it a little bit, and it starts to look a little bit different. You could get rid of background color and all of that. Anyway, I'm just going to refresh this page so I can have that back. What you're going to want to do is essentially you can just come up here and you can start overriding all of these options, because you don't want to change your button type. I mean, if you do change the button type, you're going to want to change that for all other buttons later. This button is special though. We want this to look different. So the first thing that I'm going to do before I do anything is I'm going to make it width of 100%. And the reason is because I want it really easy to click that button whenever somebody is on a mobile device, so that it's really easy. They can click anywhere on this bar and it will work. Okay, so that's the first thing I'm going to do. The next thing I'm going to do, actually real quick, I'm going to just so that I can do the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to change the width to 80% real quick, and I'm going to make it so that I can see this background color. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say background, and we're going to give it a background color. I'm just going to start off with, like, I don't know, black. or something, okay? And then I can take this color picker here and I can pick that color and then at least I've got, you know, this background color. All right, now I can go back and I can change this to 100%. You might take a different approach. You might just want the little hamburger icon, and you might say, all right, that's all I want, and I want it to be on the left side, and I want it to line up with this or whatever. You can change your styling to be that way if you want. I'm just going to go ahead and do it this way for right now, and you can always go back and modify that. Now, the thing that's happening is with the reason it looks like a gradient is because it's got a drop shadow on it, on the box. So here you've got box shadow, and you can see that if we take off that box shadow, that goes away. I do want to get rid of that. So up here, really simply, I'm just going to type box shadow, and I'm going to do none as the value for it so that it just disappears. Also, I'm going to change the color. Let's do, actually, we also want to get rid of the text shadow. There is a text shadow on it. You can kind of see it a little bit, and we'll say none. You can always go back and add it later if you really want it. And then we'll also change the color of the button. And we can, again, let's maybe start with white. And if you want to change that, you can always come back up here and maybe pick this brighter color right there. And that might look a little bit better. Oh, and you'll see that there's a hover state too. We can go back and change the hover state in a moment. And so far, if I click that to open it, right, that's what it's going to look like so far. So there's still some things that we need to deal with. So let's come back down here. The other thing too that I need to do is somewhere down here, I think we have line height of 1. You see that? So we need to undo the line height. Let's say line height like that, and let's just say, actually we don't want to undo it, we want to make it match what our previous menu was, and that was 1.6, I think it was M. If you wanted to go back, you could later. The other thing about it is that you could also change the font size to match what this is. You see that font size, let's copy that. Let's inspect it first. And we can see, oh, it's rem, it's not M. So font size is 1.6 rem. So, and then it's got some padding and stuff. We'll look at that in just a second. So let's go back down here to that size and let's inspect this again. And we're going to, let's say, first of all, let's do font size before we change the line height again. So 1.6 rem, okay? And so we can see if that looks like it's a unique, or it's a similar experience in terms of the size. Let's see, you can also turn off that line height, and I think we might need it. Yeah, we might actually need it so that it's a good, we can see if rem works actually. And I think we probably need it to be M in this case. Okay, so let's take it back to that. And then it's a nice, obvious, clickable menu. That might be a little bit high. Let's see if we do that. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Let's try this again. Let's see if we try this at 1.5. We can also, let's try 1.2. And we can see, yeah, that's not quite big enough, so maybe 3, maybe 4. Let's do 4. Yeah, I think maybe 1.6 was the deal. Okay, so we'll go back to, yeah, I think that's it. Okay, and the other thing too is that you'll notice that it's got this highlight around it. If I click on it, you see there's this highlight. Well, first of all, that's a border. This blue thing is called an outline, and it's because it's a button. It's an ADA thing that it has to show focus. So if we go over here, first of all, let's say that there's a border of none. And let's do that first. And then that border disappears. And then the next thing that we can do is we can, if we click on it, you see how there's that blue outline. We can also tell it to not have an outline. So let's say outline, or if we want to leave the outline, we can make it less, sort of less obvious. Let's just call it blue for right now. And then we can click on this and then maybe choose a very slightly different color, like maybe slightly darker or something. And so we have an outline color, but we sort of like a border, we also have to tell it how big to be. So we'll say 1 pixel and that it's solid. Okay. You could also tell it that, for instance, if you wanted it to be dotted, you could do that. Yeah, I don't know that that's what you would want, but I'm going to leave mine as solid. Okay, and then you can see that it becomes, whenever it's selected, it's clicked, you can see that it actually shows the sort of like a break or a barrier. Okay, so you might look at that and go, hey, that's not too bad. And then the other thing that you could also do, let's just jump here by clicking on my style sheet here, and then I'm going to copy these rules that I just made. And I don't need display block because that was already there, so I'm going to copy this stuff. If I actually go over here to Dreamweaver, I'm going to go to my style sheet, and I just need to find the menu toggle stuff. And here it is, where it's around line 603 on mine. Right after it says display block, we'll just go ahead and paste that in there and save it. We'll upload this, put that up there, and we can do a refresh now. And we can see that, yes, indeed, it did take our changes. Okay, and so we've got this now as a menu button, and it looks a little bit better than it did before. Now you've got this other thing that's happening. We'll deal with that later. I know I can already tell you what's happening with this is really simple to deal with. If you right click this and inspect it, basically what you're looking at is that this whole header needs, remember I told you earlier before that if you put top there, that it'll work just fine. Now the problem is then that you've got this WordPress thing that gets in your way, and that's why I didn't have it there. But it still behaves this way on a mobile device, so that it'll stay up there at the top for you at all times, so that you always have easy access to your menu. Okay. And some people like to switch things around also, like they might want to make their menu just jump up higher than that. It's it's really up to you. But I'm going to stick to this. So I'm going to leave this just so you know. I'm going to go ahead so it's really simple and so I don't forget later to change this. Where it says top, I can see that that's on line 444 of my style sheet. I can go over here and I'll find that on line 444. It's somewhere up here. And I will take the comment off of this. Let's get rid of the comment. Let's save it. Let's put it back up there. And now whenever I hit refresh, it sticks up there just fine. Okay, and then if I come out and make this bigger, it's not going to look beautiful, right? It's going to look sort of funky, right? But you'll just have to know, or you'll have to just, come over here and take that off so that you can easily see it. Okay, so that's something that's important to understand how to do whenever you're looking at that. And it's because for some reason they've got it set up so that in a responsive mode, they make it disappear here, I guess, so that you have better screen real estate, so you can just turn it back on and it disappears in scrolling. Okay. All right, so we've got our menu set up, and now what we'd want to do is I'm going to inspect this, and then I'm going to look at this at the hover state. We're going to turn on hover, and then it'll show me the hover option here. Actually, or does it? Yeah, here we do. We've got button hover. All right, and so I don't have an actual hover state for this setup. And so if I want to override that button state, then I need to create something that also gives me a hover state here. So let's go back over into Dreamweaver and let's do it there. And we're going to scroll back down to where our stuff was. Yeah, right here. So I'm going to create something where we've got menu toggle, and I'm going to copy this, and it'll also be inside of this max width media query of 600, and I'm going to put :hover, okay, so that it'll be when it's being hovered. And then we're going to make sure that we have a box shadow of none. Let's copy that and let's save that, and let's put that up there, and now we'll actually have something to work with. Let's go up here and put it. I believe that's what's happening, is that it's the box shadow. Yeah, right here. Oh, and we're probably going to also need to take off that border as well. Let me just go ahead and do that. And we'll say border none, like that. Save it, and we will put it up there. Okay, and so now we can come here and refresh. All right, and so you can see that there's no hover state now. So if you wanted to make the hover state dramatically different, you know, you could do that, right? So we could come over and we can tell it that we want to collapse that. Maybe we want to have this background be different. So let's see if we have for the button. Let's try the background color being, instead of this color, let's find the hover state. Actually, it's not on the hover state. So let's come here and click on hover. And then we've got this. So let's try doing background like this. And I'm just going to paste in this darker color that I had used before. All right, so maybe that would be the hover state. I don't know. It doesn't have to be that. So if we turn this hover state visibility off, we can see it in action, you know, and that may work. That may be a little bit, maybe a little bit dark. Maybe I want it to do a reversal and go white and or something and go dark like this. But anyway, the point is that you've got this system set up now where this will pop open, okay? And so just for the sake of it for right now, I'll go ahead and I'll tell it to be this background color. So I'll copy this, and that way we can just sort of move forward. And I'll come down here in my CSS and I'll paste that. Oops, that didn't work. Let's just type it in. Background, and then let's try that again. Let's try this color. We'll copy that. Let's try it one more time. There we go. And we'll save that and we'll put that up there. Okay. And then that should resolve at least those problems. Now our hover's actually working. You might really want it to go to a much brighter blue or something. I think I probably could have picked a different color. That's pretty dark. But anyway, you get the idea. And then now the next thing that we want to do is we want to address making these all block levels so that they'll expand out.